Hello and welcome to Spectrum News at 9. My name is Xavier Robert, coming to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom. Let's take a look at the headlines. President Buhari tells outgoing envoys democracy is still the best option. Federal government removes barriers at Lagos-Ibadan expressway construction zones. Plus, France and China call for Ukraine peace talks as Xi urges restraint. The details of these stories and more in a moment. Our first report tonight, President Muhammadu Buhari has told two outgoing ambassadors that democracy is still the best option in spite of military takeovers in some parts of Africa. The president received the two envoys at State House, Abuja. Who they are? His Excellency Eustaquio Genario Cubado of Republic of Angola and outgoing ambassador of United Arab Emirates, UAE, Fahad Obaid Al-Tafaq. The president assured the two countries that his administration will take advantage of mutual interests and continue improving on the existing relationship. In a statement released today by the special advisor to the president, Femi Adesina, the president recalled the role Nigeria played in the liberation of Angola, noting that the country deploys its resources to help sister African nations. He underscored that in spite of military coups in some parts of the continent, democracy is still the best option. In another development, Federal Controller of Works in Lagos State, Umar Bakare, said today that steps have been taken to ease travels on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, especially at construction sites during the Easter holidays. Bakare told newsmen that diversion points created on some sections of the expressway due to ongoing construction had been cleared. According to him, all crash barriers around OPEC and the Ibadan-bound carriageway had been removed and the area opened up to enable the free flow of traffic. He said that an additional slip road had been created around the Kara Bridge section on the same side to ensure smooth travel out of Lagos. Meanwhile, the federal government has approved two contracts worth 15.3 billion naira for the supply and installation of information and communication technology components, as well as digital assistance devices ahead of the population and housing census slated for May 3 through 5. The senior special assistant to the president on media and publicity, Garba Shehu, revealed this to newsmen shortly after the Federal Executive Council meeting at the Presidential Villa, Abuja. Shehu said among the memoranda that were okayed was the award of about 10.9 billion naira contract for the supply and installation of information and communication technology components for the 2023 population census. According to him, another contract which was approved for the National Population Commission (NPC) was the sum of about 4.4 billion naira for the development and implementation of mobile device management solution for the personnel digital assistance devices to be used for the 2023 population census. From the Red Chamber, the Senate has indicted Nigeria National Petroleum Company Limited for poor record keeping for crude oil deliveries to Warri Refinery and Petrochemical Company WRPC, as well as Kaduna Refinery and Petrochemical Company worth 102.6 billion naira. The indictment stemmed from the 2016 Auditor General's report submitted and presented by Matthew Urogide, which was upheld by the Senate chamber during the plenary session. Reports say other indicted agencies are the Office of Accountant General of the Federation, National Population Commission, National Agency for the Control of AIDS, FCT Area Council Service Commission, Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Justice, National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, among others. According to the lawmakers, the deliveries of crude oil from Escravos Terminal for the operation of Warri Refinery and Petrochemical Company and Kaduna Refinery and Petrochemical Company are channeled directly into the WRPC facility. In a related development, House of Representatives has mandated the Niger Delta Development Commission (NDDC) to put on hold the release of 15 billion naira counterpart funding requested by the federal government, pending the approval of the Commission's budget by the House. This was after a member of the Green Chamber, Onyemaidem, today moved a motion drawing the attention of the House to the federal government's request. According to the request, the Ministry of Niger Delta was to jointly finance an intervention and humanitarian program of sums running into several billions of naira, using the money recovered by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC) without budgetary provision. Lawmakers were concerned that the NDDC budget estimates for 2021, 2022 and 2023 are before the House for approval, and such requests for intervention and humanitarian proposals by the federal government without requisite financial appropriation and approval of the House would be illegal and a breach of the Appropriation Act. Still from the Green Chambers, the House of Representatives has resolved to transmit a bill seeking to establish a State Security Council to President Buhari for assent. According to the House, the 5th Alteration Bill 2023 had met the constitutional requirement for an amendment to the relevant parts of the 1999 Constitution. However, the Parliament mandated the clerk to the National Assembly, Sani Tambawal, to transmit the bill to the President for his assent in line with the provisions of the Act's Authentication Act. Recall that the National Assembly had in January transmitted 35 constitution alteration bills passed by the State Houses of Assembly in concurrence with the National Assembly out of the 44 bills sent to the states. Away from that, the Presidential Committee on the Review of Number and Strategy for Resourcing Nigeria's Diplomatic Missions Worldwide have submitted its final report. The Secretary to the Government of the Federation, SGF, Boss Mustafa, expressed confidence that the committee's observations, findings and recommendations will address some of challenges confronting the diplomatic missions around the world. Mustafa also gave assurance that the report would be presented to President Buhari for endorsement. The SGF noted that the report would also form part of the transition document that would be handed over to the next administration as part of the successes of the present administration. In another development, the Minister of Works and Housing, Batunde Fashola, has given indications that the Federal Executive Council (FEC) has granted approval for the ministry to go paperless in its operations going forward, noting that the sum of over 916 million naira was approved for the digitization of the operations of the ministry, especially to document projects it has carried out across the country. According to Fashola, the Ministry of Works and Housing presented 3 memoranda to the Council. He noted that the first was for the digitization of the processes of workflow and systems of the ministry. Fashola noted that the second project involved the augmentation of the price of an existing contract, which is a contract for the construction of the Kaduna Eastern Bypass, a very critical road that connects Kaduna with about 11 other states in the country. According to him, the contract has been long-standing, having been awarded since 2002, but largely unfunded. In the meantime, the National Population Commission (NPC) will begin building, numbering and household listing by April 17, before the actual census exercise in Kwara State. The State Director of NPC, Said Yusuf, made this known in Ilorin. Yusuf said that the building, numbering and household listing were part of the census and would be for 5 days, April 25 to 30, after which there would be another training before the May 3 census. He added that training of data quality managers was held on April 3 and 4, while the special workforce training for those that would assist the data managers commenced on April 5 and will end on April 7. In a separate development, the special advisor to President Muhammad Buhari on social investment, Mariam Wise, says elected officials tend to focus more on infrastructure while in office, and that has impacted negatively on education, which has also contributed to the increase in the number of out-of-school children. Speaking to newsmen, Wise noted that the politics of addressing the rate of out-of-school children is not encouraging. She added that despite all government intervention so far, there seems to be very little progress recorded regarding the number of children recorded out of school. On electoral matters now, Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) has redeployed the head of its ICT in their Adamawa office for alleged fraud during the March 28 governorship election. In a 3-paragraph letter to the officer, name withheld, the commission directed the said officer to report to the headquarters in Abuja on or before the 10th of April 2023. Recall the March 18th governorship election in Adamawa State reports that the HOD ICT, which allegedly had him speaking to a religious leader, urging cleric to act and support his ambition as a way to see that Christians win the religious war in the nation's political sphere. He called on all Nigerians and the international community to implore the APC and the APC-led government to stop their alleged attacks, adding that his focus and commitment is to lawfully and peacefully retrieve the people's mandate and to secure and unite the nation. Away from that, Commissioner for Education, Lagos State, Folashade Adefisayo, says Chrisland High School, Ikeja, has been placed on probation for 1 academic session by the Lagos State government to monitor adherence to safety policies and guidelines. She stated this while giving an update on the recent meeting between the management of Chrisland schools and government agencies under the Lagos State Joint Task Force in charge of the implementation of the Child Protection and Safeguarding Policy. According to a statement by the Deputy Director of Public Affairs of the Ministry, Ganiu Lawal, the meeting, which was attended by representatives of the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Youth and Social Development, Lagos State Safety Commission, and Office of Domestic and Sexual Violence Agency, and others, which made up the Joint Task Force, directed Chrisland to delineate leadership functions as well as strengthen risk and safety management in all schools under its jurisdiction. To Kaduna State now, where Governor Nasser El-Rufai has announced the reinstatement of 1,266 primary school teachers who were sacked in June 2022 over competency test organized by the government. The Kaduna State Universal Basic Education Board, Kad Subab, announced this in a statement issued by its public relations officer, Hawa Mohammed. In the statement, Mohammed explained that the teachers are to immediately collect their reinstatement letters from their respective education secretaries. Meanwhile, some teachers who were victims of kidnapping or involved in accidents were also reinstated. On security matters, the Defense Headquarters has described the call for interim government by some persons in the country as unfortunate and unconstitutional. The Director, Defense Media Operations, Major General Musa Danmadami, said this while addressing newsmen at the bi-weekly briefing on military operations across the country today in Abuja. Danmadami said that those calling for an interim government were just trying to be mischievous, adding that the Constitution did not provide for an interim national government. Ahead of Easter celebration, the Federal Road Safety Corps, FRC, says it has set up more than 200 mobile courts to prosecute traffic offenders during the Easter special patrol operations across the nation. This was contained in a statement by the Corps Public Education Officer B.C. Kazim. Kazim said the mobile courts were set up towards ensuring a safe and smooth 2023 Easter celebrations. According to him, the objectives of the special operations is to reduce road traffic crashes, road traffic fatalities, and road traffic injuries. Meanwhile, the Commandant General CG of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps NSCDC, Ahmed Audi, has ordered the deployment of 30,000 personnel nationwide to beef up security in the country ahead of the Easter celebration. The CG gave the order at the national headquarters of the Corps in Abuja while addressing personnel on the need for effective policing of the nation against any activities of dangerous elements planning to cause the breakdown of law and order. In a communique, Audi directed all special forces in the Corps to join forces with the regular officers to ensure a hitch-free celebration across the country. According to him, the massive deployment will cover all public utilities, suspected flashpoints, worship centers, markets, recreational facilities, shopping malls, parks, gardens, and other crowded locations. And a related development, Chairman of Chief Executive of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency NDLEA, Brigadier General Mohammed Marwa, retired, has approved the extension of the close of application on its recruitment portal by a week to enable applicants having challenges submitting their applications take advantage of the additional days to complete the process. Director, Media and Advocacy, NDLEA Headquarters, Abuja, Femi Babafemi, made this known in a statement today. Babafemi said the online application portal was opened on Sunday 12th March and originally scheduled to close on Saturday 8th April, but that with the one-week extension, the portal will remain open till midnight of Monday 17th April. He said this will enable applicants who are yet to complete their application process to do so, and those interested but yet to sign up to also take advantage of the extra days to fill their application on the portal. Still to come in the news. U.S. job cuts surge. Let's start this.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTime's DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Every society is premised on the quality of relationships forged by its inhabitants. The health of these relationships determines how well people, relationships, organizations thrive and how long they stick together. Join Uyai Anyekan on Connect every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. and on Sunday 2:30 to 3 p.m. on Channel 421 on StarTimes to catch all the conversations, interviews, real stories and how to navigate relationships and family life in the 21st century. Real people, real faces, real stories. Connect live on Spectrum Television.
Every day, we bring you up-to-date information on topical issues affecting the common Nigerian. From issues on politics,
hello Nigeria, I remain committed.
Security, education, health, lifestyle, and so much more. Join Janice Kobum and Uyai Anyekan every weekday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Rise and Shine Daily, exclusive on Spectrum Television.
The Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors
have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigeria Police Force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but you can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture in the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
Many thanks for staying tuned. We'll move on now to Africa, where Kenya's opposition Azimio coalition wants a review of the country's 13-year-old constitution to be part of discussions in its proposed dialogue with the government to end protests in the country. A statement released by opposition leader Raila Odinga after a meeting with Azimio's parliamentary group says they will be adding a review of the constitution to remove the last vestiges of an imperial presidency. The opposition referred to Kenya's winner-take-all culture. In February, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua was widely criticized for saying the government was likely a company with shares in which some have large stakes and others none at all. He has since defended himself, saying he was referring to government appointments which he said must be given to people who support the president's agenda and not state resources, which he said will be equitably distributed. Odinga has been holding bi-weekly protests since 20th March against the cost of living and to oppose the appointment of a new electoral commission without consultations. Elsewhere, Zambia's mining sector, a significant contributor to the country's economy, has made history after appointing its first female CEO to head one of the biggest mining operations there. According to a statement from Zambia's presidential office, Mfikeyi Makai will head up the copper unit in Zambia for Cobalt Metals. Cobalt Metals is a US-based company which uses artificial intelligence to identify battery metal deposits. Zambia is Africa's second biggest producer of copper, which is in high demand with the global transition to a low-carbon economy and future transport needs. Still in Africa now, plans to enact a law criminalizing the recruitment of its health personnel by other countries, Vice President Constantino Chiwenga has said. Chiwenga, who is also the health minister, said the drain of healthcare professionals was as good as human trafficking. He said stiffer penalties will be imposed on those he accused of robbing the nation of its human capital. To Ghana now, where the authorities say 1,000 soldiers and police officers are being deployed to a northeastern border town after gunmen killed an immigration officer and left 2 others in hospital. It is not yet clear who opened fire on their vehicle in Bauku on Tuesday, but there is concern about the security situation there because of the escalating jihadist conflict in neighboring Burkina Faso. There are fears that Islamist militants causing havoc across the Sahel region could destabilize countries further south, including Ghana and Ivory Coast. Meanwhile, Bauku also has a long history of ethnic tensions with outbreaks of violence. In the meantime, a court in Busan, South Korea has sentenced 2 employees of the Liberian Maritime Authority Lima to 9 years in prison each for sexual assault. According to Korean police, Moses Owen Brown and Daniel Ta had been detained in South Korea since last year for allegedly raping 2 Korean teenagers. The Liberian government said it has requested its legal representation in South Korea to furnish it with the various appeal options available. It said the families of the 2 Liberians have been notified of the court decision and will be facilitated to visit the men. In the meantime, Chad's government says it has pardoned and released 380 rebels who had been serving life sentences over the death of former President Idris Deby. He was killed 2 years ago after going to the front line to fight rebels from a group known as Front for Change and conquered in Chad. In March, more than 400 rebels were sentenced in a mass trial for acts of terrorism, recruitment of child soldiers, and assaulting the head of state. Most were pardoned by the former president's son, Muhammad Idris Deby, who took office after his father's death. Meanwhile, the pardon did not apply to the rebel leader Muhammad Mahdi Ali, who is on the run. In the meantime, police in South Africa say 9 suspected criminals behind a spate of attacks on security vans carrying cash have died during a shootout with officers. Visiting the scene in Sebokeng, south of Johannesburg, the police minister Becky Cele said several firearms had been recovered. Cash in transit heists, as they are known in South Africa, are extremely common. According to reports, 2 bystanders were shot dead by a heavily armed gang which had just targeted a security van east of Johannesburg. Still in Africa now, Uganda's Director of Public Prosecutions has approved corruption charges against Karamoja Affairs Minister Mary Goretti Kitutu over her role in an iron sheet scandal in the northeastern region. The Speaker of Parliament and some cabinet ministers have also been mentioned in the scandal that involved the alleged theft of 5,500 iron sheets meant for disaster victims in the Karamoja region. Meanwhile, the prosecutor said Kitutu, who is currently under police detention, will was to be charged in court over corruption. Reports say police have been directed to produce the minister in court for plea taking. She is expected to spend the Easter holiday in Luzira prison, where she will be remanded by the anti-corruption court after being charged. Elsewhere, Sudanese leaders have again postponed the signing of a final agreement to re-establish a civilian government as differences within military factions intensify. Reports say talks continued overnight, with negotiations centered on a draft deal that was to be signed today. Sudan has allegedly been in political crisis since October 2021, when the army overthrew a civilian government that ousted long-serving leader Omar al-Bashir in 2019. Last December, the military agreed on a roadmap to hand over power to civilians, but the negotiations have stalled due to disagreements over the unification of the national army and the dreaded paramilitary rapid support forces led by the deputy head of Sudan's ruling council, Mohamed Hamdan Daglo. Meanwhile, the spokesman for the talks, however, said they were still determined to reach a consensus with the military. On the foreign scene, top diplomats from Middle East rivals Iran and Saudi Arabia met in Beijing today, pledging to work together to bring security and stability to their turbulent region following a surprise China-brokered deal. In a joint statement released after talks between Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdollahian and Saudi counterpart Prince Faisal bin Farhan, the two sides vowed to continue to work together to improve ties. Tehran and Riyadh announced a Beijing-brokered agreement in March to restore relations that had been severed 7 years ago, when protesters in Iran attacked Saudi diplomatic missions. The minister's visit to Beijing came as French President Emmanuel Macron and EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen were also in the Chinese capital, seeking to make Europe's case in a meeting with Xi Jinping for bringing an end to the conflict in Ukraine. Still on the foreign scene, French and EU leaders today sought to make Europe's case for bringing an end to the conflict in Ukraine in Beijing, meeting with Xi Jinping, a close ally of Vladimir Putin. President Emmanuel Macron met his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping in Beijing as the French leader seeks to dissuade China from supporting Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Speaking to the press after a signing ceremony, Macron said that he and Xi had found agreement on principles during their discussions, which focused largely on war in Ukraine. Macron used stronger language than his counterpart to condemn humanitarian violations in Ukraine and speak out against the use of nuclear weapons. Meanwhile, France is bracing for another day of protests and strikes to denounce President Emmanuel Macron's pension reform after talks between the government and unions ended in deadlock. There have been signs that the 2.5-month protest movement is starting to lose some momentum, and unions will be hoping for a mass turnout on the 11th day of action since January. All sides in the standoff are awaiting the verdicts on 14th April over the reform from France's Constitutional Council, which has the power to strike out some or even all of the legislation. Meanwhile, Macron, currently out of the country on a visit to China, is facing the biggest challenge of his second term over his flagship pension overhaul, which includes hiking the minimum retirement age from 62 to 64. Protests descended into violent unrest after Prime Minister Elizabeth Borne on 16th March invoked a controversial executive power to ram the bill through Parliament without a vote. In a related development, protesters started a fire at one of French President Emmanuel Macron's favorite restaurants in Paris today during clashes with riot police at the upmarket left bank brasserie. Staff at Le Ronton in the Montparnasse area of the city were forced to put out flames on the awning of the restaurant where Macron held a victory party during his successful 2017 election bid. According to a report, a journalist saw a group of men dressed in black fire fireworks and throw stones in the direction of the eatery. Still on the foreign scene, China has launched military drills in response to a much-anticipated meeting between Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen and U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. They met in California a week after President Tsai was feted in New York with a leadership award. Reports say Tsai held their strong and unique partnership, and McCarthy said that arms sales to Taiwan must continue. Beijing, in turn, has vowed to a resolute response and sent warships into the waters around the self-governed island. Over the years, China has successfully poached many of Taiwan's former allies, whittling down the number of governments that recognize Taipei to just 13. And now it's time for the latest business and stock market stories. We have Blyden Ukem standing by.
Thank you and welcome to Business News. My name is Blyden Ukem. In the news, U.S. job cuts surge. The U.S.-based employers announced 89,700 job cuts in March, 319% above 21,387 a year earlier, as higher interest rates are forcing companies to cut costs. It was the third time this year that cuts were higher than the corresponding month a year earlier. Considering the first quarter, employers announced 270,416 cuts, the highest first quarter total since 2020, led by the tech sector. To the agricultural market, cocoa futures closed to 2.5-year high on tight supplies. Cocoa prices held above $2,900 a ton in April, not far from $2,963 on March 31st, which was the highest level since November 2020, mainly due to reduced supplies from the Ivory Coast and expectations of a global supply deficit. Ivory Coast government data has shown that farmers of the world's largest producer sent a cumulative 1.75 million metric tons of cocoa to the country's port for the 2022-2023 marketing year from October 1st to March 19, down 3.8% year-on-year. In addition, the International Cocoa Organization, ICCO, said last month that global 2022-23 cocoa stockpiles would fall 3.5% to 1.653 million metric tons due to weather variations, especially in West Africa. On the other hand, worldwide cocoa production is seen climbing 4.1% to 5.017 million metric tons, and worldwide cocoa grindings should decline by 0.6% to 5.027 million metric tons, according to reports. In Nigeria, the Nigerian government spent a whopping 3.63 trillion naira on servicing its external and domestic debt in 2022. According to data from the Debt Management Office (DMO), external debt service has cost Nigeria $2.4 billion, which amounted to 1.07 trillion naira using the exchange rate of 448 naira and 8 kobo, which Nigeria used to pay off the debt. While the total domestic debt service for the year stood at 2.56 trillion naira, with a monthly breakdown revealing that the highest debt servicing expenditure was in April, where 529.88 billion naira was spent. It's time for the Nigerian stock market report. At the end of today's trading session on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, a total of 266.95 million shares in 3,651 deals, corresponding to a market value of 1.928 billion naira, were traded. Compared with the previous trading day, which is Wednesday, April 5th, today's data shows 35% improvement in volume, 28% decline in turnover, but 4% improvement in deals. The current market capitalization of the stock exchange is 28.9 trillion naira. ICO Insurance led the gainers with 5.26% share price appreciation, closing at 60 kobo per share. On the losing side, University Praise came out last with an end-of-day price depreciation of 10% at 1 naira 80 kobo per share. Transcorp Nigeria recorded the highest volume of 147 million traded shares. The all-share index shared 24.84 basis points to close at 52,994.13 points. This is all on business news, and back to Xavier Robert for the rest of the news.
Many thanks, Blyden. Still to come in the news. Lampard returns to Chelsea as caretaker boss. Let's stay with us. Thanks for staying tuned. Now in health, no fewer than 823 confirmed cases of Lassa fever have been recorded from 98 local government areas in 24 states in Nigeria. According to the Lassa fever epidemiological report for week 12 released by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control and Prevention, 144 persons have succumbed to the disease with a case fatality ratio of 17.5%. The report also showed that 38 healthcare workers have been affected so far in the year. Still in health, study has found that walking could help people keep a healthy weight, build stronger muscles and bones, and reduce their chances of developing diabetes, heart disease, and high blood pressure. The study revealed that those who walk 8,000 steps twice weekly stand the chance of living longer. The research also indicated that walking can be linked to a better mood. According to the study by Dr. Kosuke Inoue of Kyoto University, Japan, in collaboration with researchers from the University of California, Los Angeles, United States, revealed that those who walked 8,000 steps or more a day had benefits to their cardiovascular systems. In sports now, Chelsea have appointed former boss Frank Lampard as their caretaker manager until the end of the season. Chelsea owners Todd Boehly and Bedard Mbali said they are delighted to welcome Frank back to Stamford Bridge. Recall that this comes days after the sacking of Graham Potter. So in sports, the Super Eagles of Nigeria dropped from 35 to 40 in the latest FIFA World Ranking released. The ranking published on FIFA's official website saw the Super Eagles also drop to number 40. Meanwhile, the next FIFA Men's World Ranking will be published on 20th July 2023. Now in entertainment, multi-award winning Benin music legend Angelique Kidjo has become the third African to win the prestigious Polar Music Prize. Reports say the Polar Music Prize, which is also tagged the Nobel Prize of Music, is a Swedish international award founded in 1989 by Stig Andersson. According to reports, Benin Republic's music legend Angelina Kidjo is the latest recipient of the music prize. Kidjo joins South Africa's Mariam Makeba and Senegalese Youssou as the only African to have won the prize in 2002 and 2013, respectively. Still in entertainment, Nigerian international sensation Rema has performed his global hit single on The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon. Rema performed his hit singles Calm Down and Holiday on The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon. Recall that Holiday was recently released as Rema aims to kick off 2023 on a strong note. And lastly, on entertainment tonight, Forbes Africa has published its annual 30 on the 30 list, which honors outstanding young business people, innovators, and leaders. This year's list features Thames Ira Star, Aziza Toshala, Blessing Joel, Abang, and Chloe Coco Abiri. According to the managing editor of Forbes Africa, Renuka Matthew, the finalists were chosen from a group of more than 1,000 candidates, which comprised prior Forbes Africa 30 Under 30 alumni, an editorial team led by Under 30 curator Channel Retief, as well as a group of impartial external assessors and subject matter experts. And that's all we have for you at this time. Do ensure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtv.ng. You have been watching Spectrum News at 9. My name is Xavier Robert, wishing you a terrific night rest. Good night.